We have the APSCO school board member, Diane Ralston. And we also have a school board member from the Woodbridge district, Lily. Oh my gosh. Lori.
That's such a job for her.
All right. So without further ado, let me pass the microphone on to our very own Secretary of Education, Atif Qarni.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. If you haven't had breakfast, good morning. I tried to have breakfast this morning, but I was quite busy, and Raheel was running late, so I'm just messing with you. But we did get Starbucks this morning, and I'm glad that we were running a little bit late because I went into Starbucks, and my former student, we walk in, and this lady behind the register goes, "Mr. Qarni!" And, so it's really nice to see former students, and Leticia is working full-time at Starbucks and attending. She's working on her bachelor's right now, so it's really good to see students. It's really great to be home. Exactly 8 months ago was my first day on the job at in Richmond in this position, so it's been exactly 8 months today. And the question I often get asked is that, is this job really difficult? And my response is that I was an 8th grade teacher. Jim knows what I'm talking about. But I really appreciate you all being here on a Saturday. It's great to be home. I really appreciate the support I get from the educators in the form of VEA. Jim and I talk on a regular basis, so really appreciate that. And the school board members that are here, we communicate regularly. Sometimes too much, Babur. It's okay. I'm used to the 11:30 night calls about 3 times a week. It's all right. But we do talk about policy all the time, and then my friends in the General Assembly, Jeremy, Scott, Elizabeth Lee. They're really passionate, and they really care about you all. They really care about educators. So I really appreciate everything that everybody does. I'm going to be brief. I'm going to spend about maybe 15 minutes at most to kind of give you the about a 30,000-foot view on what we're working on and what our plan is for the next 3.5 years that are remaining, or 3 years that are remaining. And then after that, we'll open it up to question, to Q&A, to really do a deep dive in an area that you might be more concerned about. And some of the big bucket items that we're working on, and from our perspective, in the governor's office, we see development of an individual and education as like a P through 20 continuum. We believe that Virginia is for learners is the thing that we've actually coined that and got the Virginia Tourism Commission to allow us to use that. But we do believe that we're lifelong learners, but we're really focused on the P through 20 continuum, and I wanted to kind of address the pieces and the bucket items in that continuum. So one of the big priorities for the administration is early childhood development, early education. We want to expand access to quality early education to as many children as possible. And so there's a lot of work being done. The First Lady is spearheading that effort. She's going to be the face of that effort, the rest of the administration. In order to address that, we brought in Jenna Conway, who did this in Louisiana the last 6 years. After a lot of research, we wanted somebody, the best person who's done this before, and she is the best in the nation in doing so. And all the research shows that 90% of the brain development occurs between birth to 5. So we have to invest early, and I truly believe that the best way to close the achievement gap is invest in our children early on. So expanding access, especially for our most at-risk students, is really important. It's really critical. So there's a lot of work being done on that through the Children's Cabinet that's chaired by the First Lady, and 4 secretaries serve on that. So I'm on there, Secretary of Health, Secretary of Agriculture, and Secretary of Public Safety. So we have a lot of work groups in that. Basically, the idea is to look at our system. Right now, we're finding is that our system in early education is too fragmented, and we really want to unify the system. The public and private partnerships are really coming together. The business community is highly engaged in that. We're looking at home visiting. We're looking at all kinds of different settings, and we want to unify the system. Fortunately for us, at the federal level, the preschool development grant just dropped last week, which 40 states are competing for, and the money will go to about 40 states. We're expecting at least $5 million, but we can get potentially up to $15 million to really, start up the work in expanding access for early education. So there are different pieces to it, and I'm working on that application along with Jenna and BDOE and the First Lady's office. So we're actively working on that. In the going to the K through 12 continuum, there are two big bucket items. One of the items is going to be a big focus on deeper learning. Right now, we're in a process of implementing new standards of accreditation. For many years, when I have been in the classroom, I have complained about too much toxic testing, and too much focus on that and not enough on actual project-based learning. I didn't realize that I would be put in a situation to really implement those changes, so I guess you get what you asked for. But I'm really excited about the new changes. We're in a reset year, so no school will be denied accreditation this school year. And some folks will say, well, are we watering down the system? But indeed, if you look at it, our system is more rigorous. And the new accreditation model that's being applied, a lot of folks put a lot of time and energy in there. A lot of educators were involved in the process, including DEA, including superintendents, including a lot of different stakeholders. And this accreditation model is much better. It's getting away from the toxic testing. There was an emphasis on just looking at pass rates for SOLs and accrediting a school. We've gotten away from that. We're doing a deep dive and looking at how our schools working on growth and on progress and on closing the achievement gap. So there's going to be an emphasis on our special education students, on our ELL students. So there's going to be a lot of focus on that. There's also going to be a focus on attendance. For a long time, we've measured output. We've never measured input. And what we realize is that with chronic absenteeism has a big impact on student performance. So we're focusing on attendance. So there'll be a focus on that. And another focus is that with deeper learning, what we have heard from a lot of our business partners is that for a long time we focused on a lot of technical skills, but there's a lot of soft skills that are missing. So you might have heard about 5 C's, and as we're implementing the 5 C's, which are critical thinking, creative thinking, being able to collaborate, being able to communicate, and being a good citizen. So all that stuff is going to be part of the deeper learning thing, and there is an SOL Innovation Committee, which is under my secretariat. We appointed some new folks to it. There's some great folks already on that. So that's going to be the brain trust in the next 3 years to really focusing on deeper learning. Jim is on there, Jeremy's on there. Some of the new appointees, Chuck Ronco, Prince William educator, will be on there as well. So we brought in a lot of talented folks from all across the state for this committee, and they'll be working on deeper learning. They'll be communicating with a lot of folks at the national level who have done a lot of research and work in this space. I'm already communicating with a lot of those folks, so we hope to make a lot of progress in that. In the K-12 continuum, there's the second bucket that is actually the closest to my heart, is focused on teacher retention. We have a significant teacher shortage in the Commonwealth. About nearly 1,000 positions are vacant where there is not a fully credentialed teacher, highly qualified teacher, and that's a significant problem. The biggest challenge we see is in special education and in elementary education. So in order to address that, there's a lot of things that need to be done. One of the things that we really need to focus on is on teacher salaries. Right now, in the Commonwealth, if you look at the average salary, some of the school divisions do well, but most do not. Some school divisions are above the national average, but most are not. But if you look at the entire state makeup, and in Virginia's code, actually, since 1987, there is language. I actually have it here. I'll read it off to you because it's important to know that it is the goal of the Commonwealth that public school teachers be compensated at a rate that is competitive in order to attract and keep highly qualified teachers. As used in this section, competitive means at a minimum at or above the national average salary, average teacher salary. The Director of Human Resource Management shall conduct a biennial review of the compensation of teachers and other occupations requiring similar education and training, and shall consider the Commonwealth compensation for teachers relative to member states in the Southern Regional Education Board. The results of these reviews shall be reported to the Governor, the General Assembly, and the Board of Education by June 1st of each odd number year. This report is generated every odd year. I've looked at 2017's report. Obviously, we'll be tracking the 2019 report, but the bottom line is that in order for us to catch up to the national average and get above that, it's a heavy lift. You know, you're talking about if we are going to catch up all our teachers, you're talking about nearly $500 million. I've done the math on that. But we need to address that, and how do we address it in the next 3 years? So oftentimes you might hear about plans from legislators going out and talking about a variety of things that we have to address in our education system. I feel that we have about $1 billion deficit as far as investing in our education as far as people are concerned, because not only do we have to catch up on the get to the national average for teacher salaries, but we also have a $500 million deficit as far as addressing the ratios for school counselors, for school nurses, for school psychologists, social workers, or elementary school principals. And then also, if you look at lifting the cap, because there was a cap placed during the Senator Keenan's administration on support staff. So if you look at a lot of those recommendations that the Board of Education has been working on, there's another about $500 million. So we have $1 billion deficit just alone in investing in people. And what I believe is that there's no app or technology that's going to resolve our equity issues. It's really going to be people and individuals. So we need to invest in people first. So yes, there are schools that are falling apart in the Commonwealth. In the last 8 months, I don't think there's been there's a single individual in the state that has visited more schools than I have. I've been to a lot of schools all over the state. Started in deep southwest at Elydale Elementary, which is the furthest westernmost school. And we wanted to make a point that we wanted to be all over the state. So I've been to a lot of schools. And indeed, there are schools that are really, really old. There are schools that are over 100 years old. We have the oldest school at Dinwiddie High School, which is 111 years old. My kids started in Richmond schools. One was built in 1919, one was built in 1911. And yes, some schools have received renovations, but some have not. So, you know, that is a significant concern. And so is technology, so is broadband, and we should focus on that. But any extra revenue that we get, either through if federal changes are happening with the sales tax, or whether we get extra lottery funds that are generated, or if our economy is doing well, the number one priority for us should be investing in human beings. It should be on teacher salaries, and it should be on addressing the ratios for the different personnel in our schools. So that's going to be my number one priorities. And after we have addressed that, then we can address the other things. And I'm not saying the other things are not important, but that is something that I'm personally, as I'm talking across the state, on a crusade to really emphasize that fact. So we got to stay focused and really investing in people. So that's where, you know, a lot of those conversations will occur internally on how we prioritize our dollars. Going through the fourth bucket item, looking at the post-secondary education, where in the K through 12 continuum, we want to take the negative stigma away from going to a community colleges, taking the negative stigma away and going into a trades field. That's occurred for too long. Success is defined as that you have to go to college in order to be successful. That's not accurate for everyone. Every individual is different. So as we're doing changes in our K-12 system, you know, if you imagine a system that a child has the agility and the flexibility to do either or, either go into a job after high school or go to a post-secondary education. So community colleges will play a key role. So in that fourth bucket item, we are working on a framework for free community college. But in that, our focus will be on high-need areas, things like health sciences, things like trades, technology. Within technology, we're looking at advanced manufacturing. We're looking at you know, cybersecurity in the CS field in general. And the reason for that is because we have a big misalignment. We have a lot of Virginians getting degrees in getting liberal arts degrees in social sciences. I'm a liberal arts guy, but only 1% of the jobs are in those fields in Virginia. A lot of our jobs are in these other high sector areas, in these other sectors of the economy that we're not fully addressing. So we have to use our community colleges as a mechanism So our community college framework will be much better than other parts of the country. You might see a lot of headlines that, hey, Maryland is offering free community college, or this state is offering free community college. As I'm studying these models, there's a lot of gaps. There's a lot of gaps. What good is a credential if it's not going to lead you to get a job? So that's the thing, is that please do not be duped by these headlines. In Virginia, we're doing a thorough amount of research, and a lot of stakeholders are developing this framework, and we're going to do it right. And you'll be hearing a lot about that in October once we have the framework ready, so forth. The last part of the continuum, if a child does choose to go to a college, we're focusing on accessibility and completion. One of the things that I'm finding is that we have a significant problem with many underserved Virginians who do not have access to our universities, and that is because there's a big information gap. A lot of families and students I'm talking to, they do not realize that they're eligible for financial aid. Whether it's through Pell Grant, but also what's offered through universities. Many of our premier universities, like College of William & Mary, UVA, Tech, they offer good financial aid packages depending on a person's financial situation, but a lot of students don't realize that. So we're working on really closing that information gap, and not only access, but going to focus on completion, because once a student gets in, then making sure that those credentials are being completed and so forth. So it's a big challenge for us, and we're trying to address that. We do have some of the best universities in the Commonwealth, that are overall, if you look at our quality of our post-secondary education or four-year institutions, they're the best in the nation. They truly are. But is everybody taking advantage of that in Virginia? And that's what a big concern is. So during the month of October 1st is the first day when FAFSA applications open up, when a lot of students start to think about college, a lot of the seniors, and get ready for applying for college, doing their applications and so forth. So I'll be traveling the state on what we call ACT, Access and Completion Talks. And we've identified, through the help of VDOE, specific communities and high schools where we see that the most density of underserved students. So I'll be doing about 5 of these talks and different things. I think one of the schools will probably be here in Prince William. The governor will be doing one of these talks as well. When we were planning this initiative, we realized that Virginia Tech was working on something similar, so we partnered with Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, JMU, College of William & Mary, and UVA have this coalition app and this plan. This is the first year they're trying it, where they want to go out also on this tour. And all month of October, they'll be going to different schools. So we've partnered with them, and we'll be parachuting in and experimenting to see how that works. If it works well, then we'll really expand the program next year. But we definitely want to encourage students, teachers. How many teachers, high school teachers, do we have in here? Thank you so much. So as you're talking to your students, please talk to them about both options, career options, whether it's an option to go to a post-secondary education or whether it's to go to a community college, and talk to them simultaneously, because they both are equally beneficial if done right. So that's the last part of the continuum, and I know that I just kind of glanced over all of these big bucket items, and I know I didn't do a deep dive on purpose, because I really want to hear from you to see if you want me to elaborate on something, or if you have a question in your mind that's been bothering you that I can kind of expand on and talk more about in what we're doing. So at this time, the floor is yours.